everybody, for the 100th and final time, just kidding, but seriously, for the 100th time, welcome to the Nobody Asked for This podcast. We made it to 100 episodes. We've officially made it to 100 episodes. Now, technically, this episode has not been put up yet, but like, come hell or high water, unless the unthinkable happens, I will put up this recording of the 100th episode, and we will have made it. So if you are hearing this, then we've made it to 100 episodes, which I just think, I would give really all of us a round of applause, but I have my very fancy recording equipment in one hand and my crystal light in another. That can't really happen, but let's just pretend. Maybe I'll do a cheers. I decided to, in celebration of the 100th episode, I was going to, instead of making, or not even making, maybe, cracking open a diet soda or a regular soda or a juice box, I have a fancy glass. Is it still called a glass if it's plastic? Like a plastic glass, is that an oxymoron? I don't know. Anyway, I have an actual glass, and I am drinking, as I said, a Crystal Light, just in celebration, in memory. I believe it's grapefruit flavored, but it's looking very orange. I also, as heavily documented on the past 100 episodes of the Nobody Asked for This podcast, I have terrible taste buds. So I couldn't really tell you what the flavor is, but I'm thinking it's grapefruit, though it's looking quite orange. But regardless, I hope everyone's doing well. I have some very special things planned for this episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast. And by some, I mean I have one thing very special planned. So the first little bit, I thought I'd do a classic, me just talking about nothing. And for the second half, I'm going to be doing, and I said half, I don't know if it's fully going to be half and half, but for the second portion, I will be doing just a bit of a look back on the Nobody Asked for This podcast. I'll be going through really the titles of the previous episodes and seeing if anything rings a bell, any commentary, any explanation, any apologies, We're just going to go down the line of the 99 past titles of the Nobody Asked for This podcast and see if anything, comes up that I would like to share. Now, I really flirted with the idea of actually recording this episode on a real microphone, because I do have the very first episode of this podcast, which we will talk about later on, was recorded on actual microphones. And I want to say so was the second episode, and then something happened in the second that has really changed the way that the Nobody Asked for This podcast has been recorded in the future, and I'll get to that a bit later. But I basically decided that I was going to stay true to my very fancy recording in the voice memo setup, because I just didn't want the audio quality to sound, now get this, worse. For whatever reason, when I tried to be fancy and be a real podcast host, of which I'm very much a fake one because, listen, those numbers, we may be at 100 episodes, but yikes. I'm here for fun, is what I'm going to say. I'm here for fun and for free. So, cheers to that. A Crystal Light cheers to that. But for whatever reason, my phone is the best recording equipment I have. So that's what we're going to continue with. It's gotten us this far, and it'll carry us through the next 100 episodes of the Nobody Asked for This podcast. Quick Crystal Light update. I've gotten to the point where, when there's a little bit left of a drink that you make from a powder, and you can start seeing the powder form at the bottom, and it's like kind of the best part because it's the sweetest. We're getting there. Cheers. I actually remember in I think it was in either like a science or psychology class in high school. I can't remember what the context was. I'm sure there was a reason, but we had to eat like Gatorade powder. Why did that memory come up? I can't remember what we were supposed to learn, but like part of the assignment was like, I think we're doing some sort of experiment, something. And at some point we had to get like a little amount of Gatorade powder and eat it. And it was the best science class I'd ever taken. So, I, again, can't remember the context. I don't know if this is like a normal thing that people do or what, but either way, all I'm saying is I haven't not tried just eating regular Gatorade powder, and I didn't not like it. Now, I don't know about Crystal Light because I believe that's like a Splenda situation. I don't know if that would taste good. I actually have eaten Splenda just as Splenda, like just to see, like just to taste. It tastes terrible. It tastes awful. It tastes like chemicals. It tastes like truly rat poison. And to be honest, I keep seeing conflicting reports. I feel like every 6 months there's an article that comes out that says like these types of sweeteners are like going to be the end of us all. And I sort of believe it because, again, it tastes like rat poison. But then every 3 months or 3 months preceding the 6-month announcement that it's terrible, there's an article with a dissenting opinion telling us no, we're going to be fine. So I don't really know how to take that. Also, I feel like there's a lot of news that's oh, there was a study found where they said this. And it's well, yeah, that's what one set of scientists found. But are we supposed to take that as gospel? I'm genuinely asking. I trust the scientists. Believe the scientists. Let the smart people figure out what they need to figure out. But I just sometimes when it's okay, one article says this and another article says that, I don't know what to do. Maybe there is not a right answer, but then how do we function? Can I have Diet Coke or can I not have Diet Coke? Or Diet Pepsi or whatever floats your boat. I can actually really get out of the Coke or Pepsi debate because it's sort of I can make it a tie because between Coke and Pepsi, Coke, 100% Coke. Pepsi tastes like stale Coke. However, Diet Pepsi is way better than Diet Coke. I don't know why. Maybe something to do with the stale, maybe the stale flavor meets the rat poisonous taste from the Splenda or whatever is in there, and it meets and it's creates something. And not that Diet Coke is bad. I would say, okay, if I was ranking the four of them, Coke, Pepsi, Diet Coke, and Diet Pepsi, I would say Pepsi's last, regular Pepsi's last. Then Diet Coke. Then Coke, then Diet Pepsi. Or maybe I would put Coke and Diet Coke as tied and then Diet Pepsi. For whatever reason, I've really grown accustomed to, again, that rat poison taste in the artificial sweetener. Because what I can tell you is that the first time I tried it, I thought, this is terrible. Why would anyone drink this, willingly, on purpose? They got me. So I don't know what sort of psychology came into play. Maybe I need to have more Gatorade powder and it'll let me know. And also, this is not a euphemism for anything. I legit was eating Gatorade powder. But yeah, sometimes there's nothing on a summer day, getting a fountain, a Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi, from the fountain. There's just nothing better. A double gulp, which I don't even think they can sell in Canada anymore because it's been banned and federally banned as this is too much soda, or pop as we say. But yeah. I don't know if anyone was wondering, 100 episodes in, I hadn't given my ranking of Coke, Pepsi, Diet Coke. So I'm really glad I got to right that wrong here today. But otherwise, I hope everyone has had a great May. I think this last episode came out at the very beginning of May, so we're now fully into May. I still haven't really nailed down what type of May we'll be having in terms of weather. It's a lot of back and forth. It was pouring rain this past weekend. I was sweating also somewhere in the middle. I don't know what to wear. I don't normally know what to wear. I don't know what what personality to have. Am I supposed to have a winter personality? Am I supposed to have a spring personality? Am I start to maybe start dusting off my summer personality? Because, not that my personality changes, so to speak, as all listeners of the Nobody Asked for This podcast can attest, because we've done it in every season, at least the past almost 2 years. So I'm the same me, but it's like, what activities are we supposed to do? Do we have to be doing indoor activities? Do we have to be doing outdoor activities? It's just hard to know. Also, speaking of seasons, I have a thought I want to share. I don't have an answer fully. But to me, because food is top 3 most important things to me, probably top 2, each season is tied to a certain food for the most part. Fall is everything pumpkin. We're eating pumpkin, we're drinking pumpkin, we're wearing pumpkin. I like to travel in a pumpkin. It's all happening. And cinnamony, And then December, peppermint. Or I guess winter. Winter, but the first half of winter. I'm not much for the peppermint mocha January, February, even though it is technically winter. Which, don't even get me started on that. How all the seasons need to be restructured. But in the current format, most of March is winter too, which is crazy. But in the December portion of winter, peppermint, gingerbread, even November can kind of be a mix of pumpkin and gingerbread. And then in the summer, I don't really have certain foods that I associate with the summer. Because you think ice cream and hamburger, hot dog, but I would eat that in February. I don't want to limit my ice cream intake, So there's that. And then spring, I don't really have any memories of spring. I kind of forget spring happens. I really go straight. I exist in 2 seasons. I exist in fall. I exist in winter, in the summer. Sorry. How confusing. I exist in winter in December, and then really January through May, I sort of just kind of float. I don't know if that's a normal experience to have, but I just sort of I don't really think too hard. And then in June, when it's summer again, I'm back. Even late May, I'll start acknowledging seasons again. But what I knew, but didn't fully sort of realize. I did know, but I've really sort of developed or digested this information quite recently, which again I did know before, but hadn't really processed. Is that the seasons are different in different parts of the world, which makes sense because something about the equator. I don't know, something about I'm not going to explain it because I don't fully know, but something to do with where the planet is, So for example, in Australia, it's fall. And that got me thinking everything I associate with fall is so specific to September, October months, September, October, November months. So does all that stuff happen now in Australia? So Halloween to me is fall. But in Australia, I think it's summer. So do they think of Halloween as summer, or do they do Halloween now? And I Googled that one. They do not do Halloween. They do Halloween in October. And then I was okay, well, fall to me is the pumpkin spice latte. Every coffee shop has a pumpkin spice latte. So do they have their pumpkin spice lattes in the summer? And no, I think they have their pumpkin spice lattes in October, but then that's not a fall thing. And all of this is great, but the bottom line is when do they wear their Uggs? It's just so many questions that need to be asked, and so many things I hadn't thought of before. Something else I was thinking while I was sort of contemplating, how places in the world are different, and it can be literally the same minute, but 2 different seasons are happening, and they're hours and hours ahead of us. I was thinking how you could be born literally the exact same minute as somebody, and based on where you are in the world, you can have completely different birthdays. Not completely different, it only would be a day apart, but you could literally be born at the same minute. If I'm born at, midnight Pacific time, no, that was a bad example. If I'm born at 6 p.m. Pacific time, and someone in Europe is born at 6 p.m. Pacific time, that means they're actually born 2 a.m. European time, whatever time zone they're on. So their birthday, it's past midnight, and they're on a completely different schedule. Like, what? I guess it's not like that crazy when you think about it, but for whatever reason, when I was up at night thinking about that, it seemed like this big kind of revelation that I wanted to share, that I needed to share rather with everybody. But yeah. Anyway, being that is, I don't know if I mentioned, it is the 100th, 100, triple digit episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast. I wanted to do sort of a look back, but before we get to that, I would like to do sort of a look forward and maybe start making some goals for what I want for the next 100 episodes of the Nobody Asked for This podcast, so that at 200 episodes of the Nobody Asked for This podcast, I can look back on the 100th episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast and see if I achieved any of those goals. So some of them will be like show specific, and some of them will be me specific. And when I say all of this, but I have not yet planned what those goals are going to be. So we're really just going to work this through, live. So the first thing I would like, this is a personal goal, what I would like by the time we get to the 200th episode of the Nobody Asked This podcast, which I don't actually know. Okay, 100 weeks away. So that would be like another year and a bit, like under 2. Oh, over 2 years. No, under 2 years. Like 2 months shy of 2 years. 22 months. 100 weeks from now. April 2026. Okay, so yeah, about almost exactly 2 years. How does that make sense? Because, that's okay, yeah. Okay, cool. It's a month shy of a year, not 8 weeks, because it's 50 plus 50, and then a year is 52 weeks, so it's like 52 plus 52, 54, 104, take away 100 is 4, okay. I'm really good at math, but if I ever do, sorry, that was such a lie. I'm playing 2 truths and a lie. Here come the truths. I'm horrible at math, but I'm not so bad at simple math. But then when I explain to someone how I got to that answer, it's like, whoa, it's like I took the back route. I took the scenic route to get there. Regardless, by April 2026, okay, maybe this is a bit unrealistic, but my dream, and this is a recently realized dream, I would like an air-conditioned, any type of car. I don't want to be too specific, but I would like some sort of, ideally like an Escalade or like a Sprinter van. I would like an air-conditioned car waiting outside for me for any building I enter, ready to take me to my next destination. Now, in my head, I have someone else driving the car, but if I need to drive the car, that's totally fine. I'm fine driving, but I would like it to be a large vehicle, air-conditioned, and parked. I don't want to say illegally parked in front of the buildings that I'm entering, but I would like it near the door, just ready to pick me up and go. I don't want to have to where did I park? And then you have to do the alarm thing, and there's panic. No, I would like the car on, air-conditioned, and ready to go. Now, the irony is my car now does not have air conditioning at all, and is obviously I park pretty much as far as you can go. I don't really play, when you go to Costco or the mall on a Saturday, although I feel like malls really are kind of going through it right now, and they're not really ever busy, but you know how you can really play the game, and you can circle that first section of parking spots, and I think someone's walking their car, I think they're moving, and then you kind of follow them to their car, or you play that game of did this person just pull in, or are they about to back out of their parking spot, and then you sit there with your clicker on like a dummy, and it's 3 minutes later, and then they get out of the car to enter the mall, and you're like, well, you could have let me know that you were not leaving. Or you're at Costco and you do that thing of you're waiting for them to put their cart back, but you would have just taken the cart, so you're trying to flag them down and say hey, you can just leave the cart there, but then you're not able, like, you're making eye contact, but it's like kind of awkward. Like that whole thing, I want nothing to do with it. So I will happily drive to the back where there are open spots. Like I'll park basically on the street, the next street over. That's now. By the 200th episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast, I would like option A, which is the vehicle waiting for me, air conditioned, on. I'll say like running. Ideally, it's an electric car so that like I'm not emitting fossil fuels, or not fossil fuels, but like, you know, like I don't want to be like causing pollution. But like if it can be an electric car, perfect, or like solar powered. I think we'll have hopefully figured that out by then. I would like that. So that's goal 1. Goal 2 for the show is, number 1, that it's still happening. I think if we've made it 100 episodes, we can do 100 more. Why not? What would be goal 3? Okay, maybe like, let's say we have like 20 listeners. I don't want to get crazy, but like maybe like a consistent 20 listeners. I'll take that. Or do you know what? We're on minute 21 of the 100th episode of the Nobody Asked For This podcast. So let's say 21. We have 21 consistent listeners. What else? Okay, maybe we could do like an updated graphic, show cover. I did make that, again, almost 2 years ago on Microsoft Paint. So maybe we could update, the technology we're using with. I'm going to say, hopefully, by episode 200, we are, recording in a bit of a better setup. Having said that, I will never disrespect my phone setup. I do hope I'm still using the same phone with the broken green line down the side. It'll be a sad day, honestly, when I have to get a new phone, because I feel like me and this green line have really bonded. If for whatever reason there are people listening, actually there should be a lot of people. If you're listening to this, you probably haven't heard the episode where I talked about the green line, so I'll do a quick recap on that. That I essentially dropped my phone in October. So what is that? 5 months from January, November, December. 7 months ago, and a green line appeared, and I have yet to fix it. So I hope by the 200th episode, me and the green line are still going strong. And I think that's it. I'll definitely update this list as time goes on throughout the next 100 episodes, but I think that's a good start, which leads us perfectly into the second half, the second quarter, or whatever, second section of the 100th episode extravaganza special of the Nobody Asked For This podcast, which is the look back at the first 100 episodes. I guess really looking back at the first 99, because you're watching or you're listening to the 100th in real time. If I haven't mentioned, this is actually the 100th episode of the Nobody Asked For This podcast. Imagine how annoying I'm going to be at 1,000. Realistically, we're not making it to 1,000, but we can pretend. Okay, so I was thinking I am going to go through each title from the past 99 episodes and just see if anything sparks joy, sparks a story. And yeah, so we're going to start it off at episode 1. It's a great place to start. And that was, and I'll be honest, if I remember any of these episodes as particularly good, I'll maybe recommend a listen. If I remember any of these episodes as particularly bad, I'll let you know maybe to skip it. So here we go. And now we're at a point where it's almost 2 years out, especially for the first 20 or so episodes, I can really make fun of myself because I'm probably a lot different from, me 2 years ago. But then once we start getting in the latter 50, I'm probably still the same person. So we kind of have to, the self-reflection will be a little bit more cringy and really harsh to take. It's easier to criticize yourself the further away you are from that self. Not to start sounding like this is the Oprah Life Class Chapter podcast, or whatever that show was called. Love Oprah. Okay, first episode, it was called Breaking Our Silence, in parentheses, in Nebraska. Now, what you'll notice is I love a parentheses. I love a long title. I love like something, comma, and something. I just think it's kind of funny. Now, Breaking Our Silence in Nebraska was... So the first 6 episodes were I recorded with my best friend, which explains the R. And yes, I believe it was called Breaking Our Silence because up until that point, we had been silent for 22 years in that we did not have a podcast. And I can't specifically remember what Nebraska had anything to do with anything, but it sounds random enough, so that's probably why I chose it. Okay, episode 2 was called Royally Convicted. Now, this is kind of I would say this is a classic episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast. I would say if you want to go back and listen to the whole thing, maybe listen to the first episode, because actually that episode we recorded in... Do you know how in the library you can like book rooms? Like you can book like a study room or whatever. The first episode was recorded in a study room of a school that we like really technically didn't go to anymore. We had just graduated from university. So we really didn't go to that school, but we still had access to like the login information for the school library's breakout room sign up. So that's where that episode was recorded. And that episode was recorded on a fancier microphone for one of us. And then I can't remember who had what, but the other microphone was like an Amazon $50 like week before purchase. And let me tell you, I put so much work into this first episode. It probably took me a combined 5 hours to edit it. It definitely took me, like I had an outline, like I had written an outline. And I was going back and forth because I didn't want it to sound like we were reading or like doing a school presentation, but like I did not know how to do a podcast. Now you could argue I still don't know how to do a podcast, but listen, I'm trying. So that was the first episode. And then the second episode, which I think is the better of the two, Royally Convicted, that was recorded on what I thought was microphones. Now, what changed the game for the Nobody Asked for This podcast recording was when I listened back to the audio, I thought, oh, this sounds so much better than the first episode. I wonder why. And it was because I actually didn't plug in the microphones. So it was just recording off my laptop, like my laptop's internal microphone, and it sounded so much better than the microphones I'd actually spent money on. So really from that point on, I think that was the last episode that was ever recorded on... Well, really, there was only the one that actually happened, and then the second one was the last time we tried to be fancy. And then from then on, it was phone microphones, and then later Zoom. But yes, the Royally Convicted episode is historic if you look at the date. So in that episode, what I remember most is we had a segment called Does Queen Elizabeth Care? And this was recorded in June of 2022. And as history now knows, our girl Lizzie, Queen Liz, she dipped. She came to an end in September of that year. So we played Does Queen Elizabeth Care? And I basically listed, I can't remember anything in particular, but like, does Queen Elizabeth care about this? And we would both give our take on if she cared or not. And I remember this as a specifically fun episode. I do have to say, I'm just sort of hearing myself talk, and I'm talking as if I am reflecting on, a historic TV show that I was on, or, something that particularly mattered. I just want to give a disclaimer. I know that this is a little bit silly, but I'm having fun, so have fun with me. Okay, so episode 3, and I will start going faster, or else this will be an hour-long episode, or 2 hours long episodes. The third episode, People Expire, Dairy Queen is Forever. Okay, so this episode was recorded partially on the same day as the second episode. And now that Dairy Queen has gone involved, I do remember in that second episode, we were talking about Queen Elizabeth. We were talking about how she only had like a very short amount of time left before she was officially the longest reigning monarch. Like she had to make it like another year or two. And at the time we had hope for that happening. And then unfortunately It didn't. But that reminded me when I said that the third title was People Expire, Dairy Queen is Forever, because I remember saying that actually no, the longest reigning monarch is the Dairy Queen, which is really hilarious joke, and I don't know why I haven't pursued more of a career in comedy. So there's that. I remember, yes, third episode, People Expire, Dairy Queen is Forever. We did a live Blizzard tasting. It was delicious. I believe I got an Oreo McFlurry. I can't remember what she got, but it was good. So that's a fun one too. That's like our only episode where it was like live. We were live on location, like the radio station. That rhymes. Okay, and then episode 4, tens of dollars and ones of hours. I don't have any particular memory of this episode, as I imagine I won't of most, but sure, funny title. The next one was A Birthday, quite literally. That was, I believe, it was where we're celebrating a birthday, obviously, duh. The next one, Allegedly, Please Don't Sue Us. In parentheses, please don't sue us, because, again, loved parentheses. I don't know if I use them as much anymore, but it was an outlet that it was a medium that I was really fond of. This one was called Allegedly because I believe we did conspiracy theories. I believe the Allegedly episode and the tens of dollars and ones of hours were both recorded via Zoom, which was very 2022 of us. So if the audio of those sound different, I don't know if it sounded better or worse. I have to go, I really would, I think the only episodes I would listen back on would be these first 6 where I had like a co-host with me. My friend, my best friend was doing it with me. I would listen to those back because that's probably funnier, and I can also not just like hear my own voice all the time, like more like half the time. Okay, and then the episode after that was Open During Renovation, which was the first one I did by myself after my friend wasn't able to do the podcast anymore. And I thought, you know what? Let's just try. Let's just go for it. Let's see if I could do a solo episode. Now, could I do a solo episode? Can I still do a solo episode? Sure. I mean, listen. I've been able to do it. I've done an episode every week. I've never missed a week. There was only 1 week where I wasn't able to record it that Wednesday night because it was turmoil after turmoil after turmoil. I can't remember the exact episode, but it was one of the early ones where like I tried Come Hell or High Water, but then came both hell and then came high water. And I couldn't do it. So I did it that very bright and early that Thursday morning, and it was up before 10 a.m. So, or I think it was up before 9 a.m. So really, I've never missed a day, and I really was only like a few hours late. Regardless, Open During Renovation, I remember I recorded that into a laptop microphone, and I think the historicness of this episode lies in that it was the last time I ever did a non-phone recorded podcast episode. So we can kiss good audio quality goodbye. Although again, not really, because I've always found my phone is the best that I can do. So yeah. The next episode, Not Profitable. Ain't that the truth? I don't remember the exact context, but amen. The next episode, this title warms my heart. It's Farting While Masked. In parentheses, the pumpkins are coming, because it is so dear to me because it combines 2 of my favorite things, farting and pumpkins. Farting while masked, I believe the story behind that was I was talking about how we were sort of again in that, or not again because I didn't say this yet, but we were in the transition time, like 2022, where like COVID was still very much a thing and still is, but some people had started to take the masks off. Some people were leaving the mask on. I liked the masks. I understand people had their issues with them. For me, like, I'm good to like kind of cover the mouth, and then I can like talk to myself and like mouth things, or like whisper underneath my breath. So I really had fun with the masks. And the only issue, the main issue I had with them is you can't really smell as well. And I don't have the best sense of smell anyway. So sometimes, if you're in public and you have to fart, if you have to release flatulence or whatever that word is, You just have to do it sometimes. And I was always self-conscious if I was farting while masked around people that were not masked, because like normally if you're all unmasked, you can just, fart, and then if you start smelling it, like maybe walk away. Or if you're all masked, you really don't have to worry about that at all. But if you have the disadvantage of not having the best sense of smell because you're masked, you really don't know what end is up. So really, it was a tough life. And the next episode, I assume, was the 10th episode, because it is called actually the 10th episode. I think I probably thought that the 9th episode was the 10th episode. And then when recording the actual 10th episode, realized this is actually the 10th episode, and then called it that. So I think that one's pretty cut and dry. Sitting in Chip Crumbs was the title of the next episode, which still do that. I was probably snacking beforehand. My dream would be to be able to record an episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast while eating, but for no other reason than I would like to multitask. But you can't really do that. But for whatever reason, I was sitting at Chip Crumbs for that particular episode. The 12th episode is called Labor Day Immunity. I think Labor Day Immunity, so this was recorded or released September 1st, 2022. And for the vast majority of these episodes, I just recorded them the day before. I think Labor Day Immunity, I was talking about how when you did, like I would do summer semesters in university. So I was really immune from Labor Day, because when you're younger and in like elementary and high school, like Labor Day is the worst day ever because you've just had 2 or 3 months off. But if you don't stop doing school, then you can't really start doing school. So I think that was what I was talking about there. And that Labor Day of September 2022. Well, no, I guess I wasn't going back to school at all. I don't know. Labor Day immunity, people. Okay, and then the next episode was called Open Dialogue with Myself, which aren't these all. The episode after that, and this title I always remember for some reason, is called Liz, Chip, and Antarctica. So this episode was recorded September 15th. So Liz was 100%, as we mentioned before, the late Queen Elizabeth. This episode was recorded September 15th, 2022. So I'm assuming we're talking about, the end. Chip would be representative of Queen Chip, aka Prince Charles, who is now King Charles. And Antarctica was me probably talking about Antarctica. Because I just had questions, like, what was their government like? Can you go to Antarctica? And if you want answers to those questions, you just have to listen to the 13th episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast. Maybe 14th, 11th, 12th, 13th, the 14th episode. Which brings us to the 15th episode, which is called Accidental Athletic Success, which I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, is me talking about the time that I did a high jump. I joined track and field because I wanted to sort of join every club in elementary school, which unfortunately for me included track and field. And I say unfortunately because I am not athletic at all. But there was one time where I did the high jump games or whatever. Like, it's that thing where they have the big mattress behind the bar that you're supposed to leap over, and if you clear the bar and don't knock it down, then, or don't touch it or knock it down, then you move on to the next round. And I believe in this episode I was talking about the time where I fully intended to just hit the bar and then, exit the race, because I knew there was no way in heck I was going to win, and why bother trying if you know you're going to lose. And I accidentally jumped over it, and then had to attempt the even higher bar, which, the higher you have to jump, the more likelihood you're going to get hurt. So if you want to hear how that story went, you can listen to the Accidental Athletic Success episode. Next episode is called A Complainer by Trade. Again, still applies. Episode after that, Thanksgiving, A Terrible Time for Complaining, which I guess was a follow-up title to the episode before. Obviously trying to give thanks and complaining. I guess I was trying to navigate the waters of doing both of those things. I have no recollection of this episode, but it's 42 minutes. It was recorded, or I guess released October 6th, 2022. The next episode, Patience the Problem. I don't exactly remember what I was talking about in there, but if you would like to know what I was talking about in there, you can listen to this episode. Episode after that is called, okay, so this is one that goes back a while. I had this title, not this title, but I'd had this idea years before I actually recorded this episode, and then it finally made sense. So this is called New York Times bestseller, which, as I'm saying it out loud, sounds normal. You know, every person on planet Earth who releases a book is somehow a New York Times bestseller, but I spelt it New, Knew, York with an E, Times like the herb, and then just bestseller. I don't actually remember the context of that episode, but obviously the title is hilarious. Again, where is my Comedic Genius Award? Episode after that is called Trick or Treating with, in parentheses, not so scientific research. I assume this is, actually, no, I don't assume because I can see the date right in front of me. This is recorded around Halloween. So maybe like a spooky season festive recording. Episode after that, now this is a title I tried to reuse recently and then realized that I had already used it. This one's called Daylight Losing's Time. Me doing the classic complaining about why do we still switch the clocks. And obviously this was during the November thing where you gain an hour, but it's somehow like darker. Like you get an extra hour sleep that night, but then it does detrimental damage. So there's that. If you want to hear me complain about daylight savings time, you can listen to the episode titled Daylight Losing's Time. Episode after that was called Kind of Worried Darling. Now this was another Zoom episode that I did with my best friend and former co-host. We did a review of that I think it was the Harry Styles movie. It's called, I think, something Darling. The title is it's not the episode of the movie that we reviewed, but it was I can't remember what the movie's called, but it's called something Darling. And that episode, I actually recorded at 3:00 in the morning here because she was in Europe at the time. So I just sort of said, okay, if you're gonna come on the show, like I'll fit to your schedule. So I watched that movie, which I don't believe I liked, but if you want to know for sure, you can listen to Kind of Worried Darling, episode number 20-something of the Nobody Asked for This podcast. And you can see whether or not I liked it. I don't remember liking it. But from about midnight to 3 a.m., I watched the movie. And then from 3 a.m., we did this episode. And then the episode after that is called The Poop Shelf, which is where I learned, again, it's the second part of that episode, where I get educated on a poop shelf, which if you would like to know what a poop shelf is, listen to that episode. Okay, episode number 24. I'll start going faster because we've been here a while. Episode 24 is called The One Episode Away from 25, which I think that sums it up perfectly. Episode 25 is called Christmas on a Budget. Enough said. Episode after that is called Pop-Tarts, Gingerbread Houses, and Jack-o'-lanterns. I recorded this episode really, really late, I remember. Pop-Tarts, I was probably talking about the gingerbread Pop-Tart that had been released that year. Which, funny enough, I still have the box, the cardboard box. I found it, like, in a random place the other day. I'm not a hoarder, but, like, maybe a little. Gingerbread houses, jack-o'-lanterns, I don't know what that means. But that was another, like, something, comma, and something formula. Episode after that is called Already Tuesday and Almost Christmas. Again, it was both of those things. December 15th, 2022. Episode after that is called Changing Topics Rapidly. Also Christmas. I think this is one of the episodes where it was just, I didn't really have a through line. There wasn't a overarching theme. It was just like 3 minutes on this topic, 3 minutes on that topic, 3 minutes on this topic, which happens from time to time because at the end of the day, I only have so many thoughts on a certain topic, so sometimes you have to change them rapidly. The next episode is called Special Christmas Episode, in parentheses, Extravaganza, and then in another set of parentheses, Post-Christmas. I believe I was kind of busy that year, as everyone is, around the holidays, but I really wanted to do a special Christmas episode, and then Christmas, the date of December 25th happened sooner than I would have liked it to, so I had to do the special Christmas episode after the fact, which I believe I also had to do this past year and will probably have to do for 2024. So that brings us to the end of the 2022 episodes. So now we're going, obviously, naturally, into the 2023 episodes. So again, really quick, more easierly in 2023. Oh, or so we hoped. Episode after that was called #Mask Up for Mars. This is when I brought forth the idea that if there aren't Martians and Mars really is sort of, not a land that anyone is being used, I think we should all mask up and go there so that there's no COVID, there's no, anything that we have to worry about, and just start anew. Now, again, if the Martians are up there, I respect them. We'll leave you alone. But that was the explanation behind that. Smellatory memory. I don't know what that was about, but I called an episode that. I believe I was referring to the scientific term for when you have something that a smell stuck in your nose, which happens to me quite frequently, where I'll be around something for an hour or two, and it'll be 6 days later, and I'm still smelling like waffles or whatever. Sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse. Episode after that is called Eat, Eat, Eat. I believe that was a spin on Eat, Pray, Love, where I just ditched the prayer and the love and eat, eat, eat. Episode after that is called Another One Bites the Dust. Don't know what I'm referring to, but sure. Episode after that is called The Bee Movie, a great film that I recommend everyone watching. Episode after that is called Fake Crime Podcast. Oh, this is when I was sort of not negotiating, but contemplating a complete genre change. But I thought true crime, it's a little bit, just the ethics of it. It's these are people's lives and we're talking about them. And I didn't want to be, I just want to have to do research. So I thought I'll just do podcasts about fake crime. So that was an idea. I might still use that idea one day. You never know. This next episode title could probably just summarize the entire Nobody Asked This podcast and could really be the title. But it was called This Is Either Very Annoying or Genius. Enough said. The next episode is called February, but it's spelled Feb and then airy, and then in the parentheses sick, which I believe means, this person spelled it wrong. And I obviously was talking about how February is spelled near impossible. Why is there that extra R? We don't say February, or at least I don't. Maybe people do. But I was sort of doing a petition for it to be spelled without the R, without that first R. So February. Next episode, so many words, so little substance, which again, fair. The episode after that, I do have to say, is, I can't remember what I was talking about, but one of my favorite titles is called Diary. So diary, the book that you, a journal, comma, UH. Genius. I don't know how it took me 30-something episodes to figure that out. Okay, the next episode was called Filet-O-Fish by the Sea. I can't exactly remember what I was discussing, but I do remember that this was the first time I had really used a term that was a thing, like Filet-O-Fish. And I randomly got a bit more views because I think people thought I was doing a review of the Filet-O-Fish. So I've used that knowledge to my advantage from time to time. Next episode was called Delusion, Confidence, and Milk Alternatives. Again, another this, comma, and this. I didn't say that properly, but you know what I mean. Episode after that is called Putting the Nobody in Nobody Asked for This, which, again, we always do. Okay, I'm starting to remember these episodes a bit more. Not that like the original episodes were so far away, but it's just this is a bit sooner, a bit more recent. So the episode after this is called Mini Egg Appraiser. I believe I was talking about how different brands of mini eggs, whether it's like the full name brand or like the grocery store off brands, how they all line up. Episode after that, Clean Up on Aisle Eggnog. I guess I spilled eggnog somewhere. I can't fully remember. Oh, I think I left. Okay, do you know how I've talked about this before, but they've started to make eggnog available for Easter. I believe I left my eggnog in the car that year, so I couldn't eat it, and I was very sad. Episode after that, I really lost track of the numbers, but who cares? Episode after that was called TikTok Tetanus Shot. This was me opening up on how my tetanus shot was evaporating at rapid pace. I believe a tetanus shot you're supposed to get, or not supposed to, but you get one and you're good for 10 years. I am now like 6 months away from my tetanus shot being invalid, which makes me nervous. Episode after that is called Chapstick Science, Central Time, and Willy Wonka. I have no memory of any of this, but I guess I talked about those three things. Next episode was called Fear the Droppings, and I was actually trying to remember when this whole saga happened, but I guess it was May 11th, 2023. So we're about a year away a year past this episode. But Fear the Droppings was about how there was a mouse in my house. I believe, knock on wood, that is no longer an issue, but you never know. Episode after that is called Winnie the Pooh-teen. Hilarious. Episode after that, The Hoodie Effect. I don't know what The Hoodie Effect is. I think we should all listen to that episode to find out. Episode after that is called May Contained. Who knows what that means? Episode after that is called Half Off Chicken Wings. And this was where I tell the story of the time where I made chicken wings. And when I say tell the story of the time, it probably happened the same day that I released the episode, or that same week at least. But Half Off Chicken Wings was when I made chicken wings without spraying the pan properly. So when I took them off the pan, half of them stuck. So it was really chicken half off the bone, not in terms of chicken half off in price. Next episode was called Clenching on the Freeway. I think we can kind of put two and two together for that one. That's your hint. Episode after that is, funnily enough, actually what I was going to call this episode, which is episode 101. I don't remember why I called it that, but I guess I can't name the next episode that. The next episode is called A Psychological Episode. I have no idea what that was about. That sounds a little strange. The next episode was called June 37th. I believe the math behind that is that it was recorded on July 26th. So if you do the math, that would, in theory, be June 37th. Yikes. Episode after that is called Semi-Related Side Notes. Sure, which I guess I do that a lot. Next, Happy Space Exploration Day. I feel like that episode, I just needed something to talk about, so I Googled, do you know how there's always those stupid, it's International this day, or it's National Pizza Day, so I probably just Googled, what is the day today, so that I had, something to talk about for 10 minutes. Episode after that is called Half Warm Nonsense. I don't fully remember what I was talking about, but I encourage us all to listen back to find out. Episode after that was called The Medicinal Toilet. I think I had an idea for a toilet that I thought could somehow be medicinal, but I don't remember the exact blueprint. I'd have to go look back. An anticipatory fall episode. This was recorded April 10th of last year, so I assume I was talking about how fall was coming up. Episode after that, Einstein Could Have Had a Big Mac. This was a big one for me. So this one, not this episode in particular, but this personal realization is when I realized, the years that Einstein lived were not in the 1700s, but in fact, I think in the 1900s. Let me just Google this again. Einstein, years of operation. Yeah, so he passed in 1955. So he could have been just walking around, getting fast food, which that was surprising to me. Episode after that was called September Delusion. I don't remember what the September Delusion was. Episode after that was called Humoric Silence. Sure. Episode after that, Ecosystem, in parentheses, an episode longer than most, which this is funny enough. This is an episode longer than most. This will go down in history as the longest episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast, which, as it should, it is a special one. Next episode is called Negative Acclaim, Positive Critique. Sure. Episode after that, We Have Time Today. Don't know what we had time for, but that's exciting for us. Episode after that, Same Old Shenanigans, which all of these titles sound like my same old shenanigans, so that really all is in line. Episode after that, this one was recorded October 5th of last year, so we're getting pretty recent. That was called One Take Wonder. I believe this is an episode where I clicked the record button. I did not stop, I did not pause, I did not take a break, I did not re-say anything. So that's pretty cool-ish. I mean, I guess let's listen back to the episode and see if it was good. The next episode was called In a Quiet Room with a Guitar, the 110th anniversary of the fridge. That last part was in parentheses. I recorded this one next to a guitar, and anytime I talked too loud, it would like vibrate, like you would hear like the bzzz of the guitar. So that was irritating, but like I sort of used it to my advantage. And then I guess it happened to fall on the 110th anniversary of the fridge. An exciting invention. Episode after that was called The Series of Unfortunate Events. I don't remember what those events were, but I guess we could all listen to that episode to find out. Episode after that this episode is going to be called Episode After That because I keep saying that. The following episode was called Are These Joes Related? I believe I was referring to Trader Joe and Joe's snacks that you buy at Walmart and was wondering just that. Are these Joes related? The next episode was titled Blessed with Cheap Taste. I believe this was me talking about how I felt fortunate that I don't really need expensive stuff, Not that I have it, so it's almost like of course, it's like, oh no, I don't want expensive stuff. It's like, well, no, because you've never had it. But I'm fine with, cheap works. Cheap does the job sometimes. Episode after that was called Keeping Us in the Dark, in parentheses, Daylight Losings Time again, because I believe I went to just call it Daylight Losings Time and then was reminded by my computer that I already had an episode called that. The following episode was Running Out of Cup Holders. I believe this is kind of the start of my recording in the car. Not the start, but like there was a string of episodes around last fall where like it was consistently recorded in the car. And I believe I was in a position vehicularly where every cup holder was filled. The two up in the front, the two in the middle seat, probably some like in the back row of just cups that I was too lazy to bring into the dishwasher. I'm ashamed of that time, but it happened and I have to own it. The episode after that was called Retire on a Big Sack of Money, which I still plan to do. The following episode was called New Recording 199, which was the title of the file that I recorded that podcast in, because your iPhone just names it New Recording number whatever. So really uninspired that week. I just was sort of pulling from anything. The next episode, this was recorded December 7th of last year. It was called Cyber Month Day, Ad nauseum. Ad nauseum was in parentheses. I called it Cyber Month Day because I felt like Cyber Monday was going on for a month, and I was feeling nauseous because of that. Next episode was called I Quilt, because it sounded like I quit, and I thought it was funny. I can't remember what I was quitting, and because I continued to do episodes, I clearly wasn't quitting the podcast, so I think I just thought I was being funny. Episode after that was called 370 Days Till Christmas. Now, this was recorded December 21st. So there were really like 4 days left till Christmas, but I think I was in some ways, I guess I recorded it on the 20th. So I think I was just sort of in a place where I wasn't ready for Christmas to happen So I sort of just cut my losses and started counting down to Christmas 2024, which, let's just see, how many days till Christmas? We gotta almost be in the 100s, right? Okay, so 231. There's 231 days till Christmas, which is a lot less than 370, so we've really made some progress. And then that following episode was called Leaving Something to be Desired. Sure. Episode after that, 2023 Can't Hurt Us Anymore. This was the first episode of 2024, so I was just making a statement. Episode after that was called The Scrapped Recording from Earlier This Morning. Okay, so this was the first and only time I've done this, where I recorded about 10 minutes and decided, like, listen, even for me, this is bad. So let me not upload this. Which I can only imagine how bad it must have been if I decided not to upload it. Like, I feel like I recorded those scrapped minutes, like, in the car, and I just thought, this is not me. This is not good. And we're starting anew. And I haven't looked back since. The following episode from January 18th of this year was called December 32nd. Now, this isn't like the past episode. Like, this is not like the June 37th or whatever episode, because this episode was recorded January 18th, so I don't know what I was talking about. Oh, I actually know. I do remember what I was talking about. I think I was proposing that we make a January 32nd where it's not a holiday, but it's not officially the first day of the new year, because I feel like to go from December 31st, New Year's Eve, to not only New Year's Day, but like then enter a whole new year, I didn't feel like that was right. So we'll see. Everyone listen back to this episode and see if you agree with me. Episode after that was called Those Circles Are Doing Nothing. I believe I was referring to, on the newer iPhones, how they have what looks to be a stovetop as the camera. I have a little hunch that those extra circles are doing nothing, and I stand behind that. Next episode is called Vicky, You've Done It Again. I believe I was talking about Vicky as in Miss Vicky, as in Miss Vicky's chips. I can't exactly remember the flavor that I thought she had done it again on, but I'm sure she did. Episode after that was called Keyboard in Thin Air. I can't fully remember what I was talking about, but this is a long episode, so I'm not going to try and remember. Episode after that was called Corn. I believe that was the week I made chili, so there's probably just corn on the brain. And it was specifically corn with a period after. So I guess it was like corn, not corn. Episode after that, February 27th, was called Finish, Flash in the Pan. That was me recounting how when this podcast debuted, we made it in like somewhere on the podcast comedy charts in Finland. So I was very popular, obviously. I was in the top 200 podcasts of comedy podcasts for approximately one day in Finland. And then free fell off the charts after that. So I was somewhat of a flash in the pan. Episode after that was called Bendable Bandage, not Band-Aid. Bendable Bandage. I believe I was talking about how they needed to make a Band-Aid that was more conducive to fingers, because for whatever reason I find like I always get little like cuts and stuff on my fingers, and then you can't really put a Band-Aid on a finger because you're always bending it. So still open. Not the cuts have all healed, but like the idea, I'm still open to that idea. Episode after that was called Bill, period. So Bill, I believe I was referring to William Shakespeare. Episode after that called Tuna Salad. Who doesn't love tuna salad? Episode following that was called Flatulence. That was the episode that I learned that farting is called that as well, in the medical field. Following episode was called Flay of Trees, in parentheses, or whatever paper is. This is a bringing back of the parentheses. I feel like I hadn't done it in a while, so I was like, you know what, why not? Episode after that was called Mathematics. I'm not sure why, because again, I'm terrible at them. The following episode from just a few weeks ago was called Tires, because I was talking about tires, I guess, ? Episode after that was called Advantageous Delusion, which was basically me talking about how I use my own delusion to my advantage, I'm assuming. Episode after that, which was just 2 weeks ago at this point, was called Toilet Water. And then just last week, it was called Ring Around the Rink. Now, you could have offered me $1 million. I could not have correctly told you what the name of last week's episode was. Ring Around the Rink. Don't even remember what I was talking about. But with that, we have concluded the walk down memory lane. So we're closing memory lane for now. We will reopen memory lane in April of next year. Or no, of April of 2026, where hopefully we will have much better audio quality, much better production value. But until then, I want to thank every and anybody who has listened to this, anyone who will listen to this. I've enjoyed speaking into this broken, busted phone every week, and will continue to do so. So if you like what you've heard, there's no way anyone has gotten to the end of an episode that's over an hour, but if you happen to have, and you want to hear more, you can go to podcastnobodyaskforthis.podbean.com. On there, you can listen to all the episodes just straight on there, or find links to our Apple Podcast, Spotify. We're also on YouTube. All the episodes will go up on YouTube. You can just search it, Nobody Asked for This podcast. And then there'll probably be like multiple other Nobody Asked for This podcasts. It's not the most unique name, but we'll be on there somewhere. And yeah, you can also, we do have a Twitter, a Facebook, a TikTok, and an Instagram. They're not updated much these days, but maybe I'll get back on that for the next set of 100. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week. Have a great weekend. Stay cool or stay warm, depending on what the weather will bring us, depending on what season you are in, depending on where you are in the world. But thanks again. Have a great week. I will hear you. No, you will hear me. I won't hear. If I start hearing you, then we know something's off. You will hear from me this time next week. And yeah, thanks again. Bye.